Welcome back to my channel where we share with you the most insane and ridiculous landlord-tenant stories that have ever happened to us. Today's story is from a user who says, "My apartment complex recently had a noise complaint filed against me. I was whining too much when left alone. The noise complaint was filed by my neighbor and it was returned to me by the apartment complex. Can I sue for harassment?" Well, yes, you can sue for harassment. But before we get into that, let's hear how this story began. I moved into my apartment at the beginning of December last year. It's an off-brand, but it's a very well-established complex with a great reputation in the area. I love living here. My apartment is very quiet and I haven't heard any of my neighbors since moving in, except for one incident a few weeks ago. At the end of January, I woke up around 6 a.m. because my upstairs neighbor was stomping around their apartment. Now, I don't usually wake up at 6 a.m., so I assume they were doing renovations or something. Around 10 minutes later, I heard what sounded like furniture being dragged across the floor, then footsteps followed by what sounded like loud banging and crashing. On February, I woke up again at 6 a.m. to what sounded like my neighbor singing loudly. This time it lasted about half an hour. On February, I woke up again at 6 a.m. to what sounded like my neighbor vacuuming loudly. And on February, I woke up at 6 a.m. to my neighbor playing music loudly. I checked the lease and there's a clause in there that says that tenants are prohibited from making excessive noise between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. So on February, I sent my landlord a message letting them know that I've been woken up every morning at 6 a.m. for the past week due to my upstairs neighbor being noisy. I also attached the lease to my message. 3 days later, I received a message from the apartment complex stating that they received my message and forwarded it to maintenance. I never heard back from anyone, so I decided to call the landlord directly. I reached out to them 3 times before I finally got a hold of him. He told me that he would look into the issue and get back to me. He never did. On March, I received a notice on my door saying that a noise complaint was filed against me and that I need to stop making excessive noise after 10 p.m. and before 8 a.m. The funny thing is that no noise complaints were made after 10 p.m. All of the noise complaints were made before 8 a.m. If you're wondering why I didn't go straight to the landlord instead of using the tenant portal, it's because I couldn't get in contact with anyone through the tenant portal. They never responded to any of my messages until they gave me a warning. So, yeah, I wasn't feeling very optimistic that anything would be done about this. I'm not sure if this is harassment or not. I feel like the apartment complex ignored all of my attempts to resolve this issue until I got to the point where I had to file a complaint myself, and even then it took them over a month to respond. Well, I think this is definitely harassment. Yes, your neighbor could have filed a complaint each morning, but your lease clearly states that you cannot make excessive noise during those hours. So whether it's stomping, singing, vacuuming or playing music, you're violating the lease agreement. Your neighbor has every right to complain. And the fact that your landlord didn't address any of your concerns until they had to publicly shame you shows that they are siding with the neighbor. Now, as far as what you can do about this, the best option would be to speak to the neighbor. Try to remain calm and polite. Explain to them that you have been woken up every morning and ask if they could please keep it down in the mornings. If that doesn't work, then you need to get your landlord involved again. Don't use the tenant portal. Call them, email them, text them, do whatever you have to do to get them on the phone. Then ask them what they're going to do to rectify this situation. If that doesn't work, then you can file a complaint with the housing authority in your city. You can probably find the number for that online. That should be your third step. If none of those options work, then you can take legal action. But at that point, you're looking at a lot of legal fees and you still might not win. So I wouldn't recommend that unless it becomes a recurring problem that the landlord won't fix. Have you ever had a crazy noise complaint filed against you? Share your story in the comments below. And if you decide to sue for harassment, be sure to follow up with us here on our /landlord tenant